Man at his birth is supple and tender, but in death he is rigid and hard. Thus suppleness and tenderness are the marks of life, and rigidity and hardness the marks of death. Tao is always gentle, you see, always yielding. It is feminine, in a way. Lao Tzu says, although you may be a male, always have a certain feminine quality, and thus you will become a universal channel. That has particularly to be learned by men in the United States, who tend to overcompensate masculinity, to be ashamed of gentleness, and to emphasize a kind of attitude to life, which usually indicates a fear of incipient homosexuality. And as a result, we have a lot of misunderstanding between men and women, because each one is so busy being their particular sex that they have nothing in common. So this idea then is the strength of gentleness. And of course it is ultimately on this philosophy that the Japanese worked out the science of judo. Do is the way the Japanese pronounce Dao. Ju means gentle. Judo, the gentle way, whereby a strong man is alarmingly defeated by the use of his own strength against himself. But if, for a change, we would allow our feelings and look upon their comings and goings as something as beautiful and as natural and necessary as changes in the weather, the going of night and day, and of the four seasons, we would be at peace with ourselves. Because what is problematic for Western man is not so much his struggles with other people and their needs and their problems as his struggle with his own feelings, with what he will allow himself to feel and what he won't allow himself to feel. He's ashamed to feel really profoundly sad, so much so that he could cry. It is not manly to cry. He is ashamed to loathe somebody, because you are not supposed to hate people. He is ashamed to be so overcome with the beauty of something, whether it be a natural landscape or a member of the opposite sex, that he goes out of his mind with this beauty. Because all that kind of thing is not being in control, old boy. Not kind of having your hand on the wheel. And then, if you've read an article in Look this week by Marshall McLuhan and George Leonard on sex, the future of sex, fantastic, brings up some information that what they call the narrow gauge specialized male, that is the sort of guy who gets out there and sells, you know, and he mustn't have any feelings, because that would be unmanly to have any feelings, except he can have a kind of a gruff, you know. But so many of these men are like that, and it says that role playing of that kind of male gives you ulcers and all kinds of complaints, and is more deadly than facing the bullets in Vietnam. And they all die before their wives, because they are engaged in the pursuit of a completely fatuous goal. This fatuous goal is the future, and it is symbolized above all by money. They make lots of it, and having much more than they can even think about, and they have no idea what to do with it, except make more, except invest it in bigger and bigger units of something.
And while they are harassed about that, they're wondering about the antitrust boys, the Internal Revenue, their competitors, and all these ghouls who are involved in the game. They lie awake nights. They can't go home and throw the whole thing off. They have to get completely boozed. That's one way out. Or tranquilized, which is another way out. Or something or other, in order to take it. And they call themselves realists. You see, they're utterly unrelated to the physical universe. Well, this is partly, of course, because of the education they've received. You see, if you go to an ordinary school, such as we've had since the early 19th century, you discover that your education is purely cerebral. You are prepared to be an executive, a bureaucrat, some kind of clerk.
And so we get a culture based on the idea of the war between man and nature. And we talk about the conquest of space, the conquest of Everest. And the great symbols of our culture are the rocket and the bulldozer. The rocket, you know, compensation for the sexually inadequate male. So we're going to conquer space. You know, we're in space already, way up. If anybody cared to be sensitive and let what's outside space come to you, you can, if your eyes are clear enough. Aided by telescopes, aided by radio astronomy, aided by all the kind of sensitive instruments we can devise. We are as far out in space as we're ever going to get. But, you know, sensitivity isn't the pitch. Especially in the WASP culture of the United States, we define manliness in terms of aggression. You see, because we're a little bit frightened as to whether we are really men. And so we put on this great show of being a tough guy. It's completely unnecessary. You know, if you have what it takes, you don't need to put on that show. You don't need to beat nature into submission. Why be hostile to nature? Because after all, you are a symptom of nature. You, as a human being, you grow out of this physical universe in just exactly the same way that an apple grows off an apple tree.
But you know, men, especially in America, and I will say this also to men in England, are terribly uptight about coming on in a way that they're supposed to be feminine. They say skirts are for women, sissy stuff. But you know, if you're biologically male, you don't need to prove that you are. It's so strange to me how an enormous number of men don't seem to be able to realize that they're men unless they can in some way or through some sort of medium go vroom and come on with tremendous energy, very strong. See, that shows I'm a man. But if you're a real man, you don't need to show that at all. All you need to do to find out whether you're a real man is ask a woman.
This thing simply cannot be folded or packed away without making it a must, so that it has to be sent to the cleaners, or your wife has to iron it in order to be fit to wear. Because it is a fake which is designed to fit the human body, to fit the contours of the male figure, which is not in the nature of cloth. Cloth should hang on you, and then it is dignified. But when it is shaped in this way, it doesn't fit you. You have violated the nature of cloth, and therefore you've got yourself a kind of a silly garment. And furthermore, it is not comfortable. Let's take, for example, trousers. Trousers are designed for women, not men. Not all women look good in trousers. But certainly they are very uncomfortable for men. Men should wear freely flowing skirts, because that suits their anatomy. But we could consider that sissy for purely abstract reasons. We wear all kinds of complicated neckties and buttons and everything to make us uncomfortable. And furthermore, our clothes are mostly badly sewn, rottenly put together, and very quickly fall apart. So that if you want really good clothes today, you must buy them from peasants. You can go, for example, to Mexico and get gorgeous woolen clothes, serapes, sweaters that are absolutely beautiful. You can still go to the Orient and buy magnificent clothes made by people who enjoy making them. Whereas here, we dress in a colorless, drab way. And we wear this symbolic necktie, which is really a noose to be strangled with. We, in other words, don't enjoy clothing. We ought to enjoy clothing. What's the point of going around in clothes unless you enjoy clothes?